This is a project by Will Mallory and Caroline Birdrow entitled Society is the Human Body: Why We Should Do More to Address Poverty. Currently, there are 1.4 billion people living today in extreme poverty that do not have enough to meet the most basic human needs. These are human lives that are living off of less than $1.25 a day. UNICEF tells us that nearly 10 million young children and at least another 8 million older children and adults die from avoidable poverty-related hardship each year. Our thesis is, all human beings are connected by the commonality of the human experience, and thus are responsible for upholding the value and worth of every human life by addressing poverty-related hardship. As this suffering is dispersed across the globe, you might be wondering how you, just 1 in 7 billion people, can actually have an effect in the ongoing battle against global poverty. As the affluent live lucrative lifestyles of their own, there are children in South Africa suffering every day. The goal of this presentation is to show you why this fact must be addressed. Currently, 8,000 miles away, people are living in severe poverty. This man, Garrett Hardin, does not care about those 1.4 billion lives suffering right now. He argues that the world as we know it is like a lifeboat with a set capacity, and if it is filled, then there will be a tragedy of the commons, causing a complete catastrophe of the human race. Hardin and his advocates ultimately believe that those fortunate enough to be on the lifeboat in the first place are justified in keeping their place and letting the poor learn the hard way. But by saying this, Hardin is basically justifying leaving all of those 1.4 billion lives to perish. Hardin and his advocates have been corrupted by wealth and blinded to the importance of fundamental rights and the commonality of the human experience. His philosophy promotes excessive individualism, perpetuates oppression, and avoids poverty-related hardship. Awareness of the problems of poverty means you need to be aware of the decisions you make on a daily basis. Everything you do, from what you wear to the leftover food you throw in the garbage to what you drink in the morning, has some effect on the world around you.
Because humans are interconnected by a common experience in their daily decisions, Hardin and others are simply wrong to think that someone who lives in New York has absolutely no connection or responsibility to someone who lives in Africa. Clearly, there are great distances between us, but our lives unavoidably are intertwined, and we indirectly share both the suffering and joy of all. Why don't we erase all knowledge of physical geography and instead think of ourselves as part of the same human body? In Lifeboat Ethics, Hardin asks, should those nations that do manage to put something aside be forced to come to the rescue each time an emergency occurs among the poor nations? Think of it this way, Hardin. Let's say the most of your human body is healthy because you exercise, eat well, get enough sleep, and have adequate health care. Perhaps your skin had nothing directly to do with any of those efforts, and that you accidentally cut the skin on your finger when cooking. Does the rest of your body not have a responsibility to heal the skin on your finger, even though it didn't help you eat a balanced diet or sleep at night? The answer undoubtedly is yes. The skin may not have helped you with certain efforts, but it helps you in ways that you forget it does. It is a shield between you and the outside world. You are connected to it, receive certain benefits from it, and should have an interest to protect it. As part of this collective human body, we all have both rights and duties. Like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, we think that an individual's basic rights must include a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care. Without these rights, humans are unable to live dignified lives. And you may ask yourself, what can I do to alleviate oppression? In our collective human body, we also have duties. All humans recognize that suffering is bad, and as John Rawls would claim, are self-interested beings who do not want to experience hardship. Thus, in the human body, if suffering is bad for one, it is bad for all, and all humans have a positive duty to prevent the suffering of others and to address poverty-related hardship.
So far, we've established that we do, in fact, have positive moral duties to prevent suffering, but now we want to address exactly how far those duties are supposed to extend. Singer argues that you should donate everything you have until, quote, the point where if you give any more, you will be sacrificing something nearly as important as a child's life, like giving so much that you can no longer afford to give your children adequate education. We believe that Singer seems to be stretching the boundaries too far. If the sacrifice is not something nearly as important, like a daily cup of coffee, for instance, then would its contribution really have a significant impact? Later we will try to resolve this issue, but now we would like to return to the principles established by John Rawls to determine what duties actually entail.
Rawls would claim that our duties to uphold his principles of justice, which are that we should have basic liberties for all, equal opportunity for individuals to pursue their personal goals, and if there will be inequalities, they should benefit all. However, Nozick would have serious problems with both Rawls and Singer. In order to uphold Rawls's second principle of justice and to sacrifice everything that is not nearly as important as reducing human suffering, Nozick thinks that this would call for redistribution, which he says is just plain stealing. Nozick might point out a potential flaw in Rawls's argument, which is that securing the second principle of justice might violate the first one. How can inequalities benefit all without requiring those who have more to give some of their holdings to others? But this is exactly what we are arguing for. Let's think back to our human body. If blood rushes to your head, it will have an ample supply of blood, but this could be to the detriment of your head and the rest of your body. In order to survive, your body must redistribute the blood. Because all humans have a shared experience, we share the benefits of redistribution. If I have too much of something and you have too little, everyone's basic liberties are at stake.
If you are still not convinced that redistribution is needed, then consider how so many people are stuck in poverty today. Looking back through history, it doesn't take long to realize that our past is full of injustice, and that these past injustices have gradually caused the adverse conditions that over 1.4 billion people experience today. If we want to rectify these past injustices and move towards a more just society that Rawls envisions, then we must redistribute. Earlier we said that Singer calls for too much individual action by arguing that people should give up everything they have that is not nearly important as a child's life. We want to resolve our concern with Singer by turning to the work of Thomas Pogge, by showing that institutional action is most important because institutions make decisions closer to the impact of harm. In a world where decisions we make, quote, reverberate around the globe, end quote, it is the responsibility of global institutions to mitigate the harms done to those that are suffering the most.
Pogge might say to Singer that the $5 latte I buy every day really might not matter as much in the grand scheme of things. Well-developed countries, according to Pogge, annually are donating $11 billion to the relief of global poverty. Our $1,825 coffee budget doesn't even begin to match that number, or the $300 billion Pogge thinks countries should be donating. Institutions, in his opinion, can make a far greater impact than the lifestyle changes of individuals. Pogge might argue that every member of the human body has a different level of responsibility in maintaining its health, as not all have the same resources and power. One's most basic and primary duties are to contribute to his family and engage in the development of communities. Moving up the pyramid of resources and power, he is expected to participate in direct volunteer work and to donate to poverty relief efforts. Pogge also claims that humans must be civically engaged and supportive of just institutions, and most importantly, those institutions must develop and implement just policies.
In the end, it's about changing the way we think about those impoverished lives. Instead of abiding to an individualistic model of rights, we should accept that poor people have a moral right to dependency. Taking their dependency as a right further promotes the positive moral duty we have to help. When we consider that all humans are connected by a common experience, we realize that those 1.4 billion lives living in severe poverty have a perpetuating injustice being done to them. They have been denied the most basic of human rights and the opportunity to pursue their own life prospects. We must understand that we have a positive moral duty to prevent suffering, and we must fulfill this duty by reconsidering our daily decisions and supporting the institutions that make the greatest impact. We need to change the way we think about the human condition and recognize that those suffering have a moral right to dependency, just as we have a responsibility to resuscitate our own body parts. As connected individuals, it is our duty to make a positive impact on the lives of those suffering the most.